Hi, in the next video I want to talk to you about protein turnover and nitrogen balance. So let's start out with the question, what is protein turnover? Now, protein turnover refers to the continuous synthesis and degradation of body proteins. So every day from the amino acid pool circulating in the bloodstream, proteins are made and those same proteins are again degraded. Now this is different from building a house. Let's make the analogy with building a house. You use bricks to build a house, similar to the use of amino acids to make body protein. But in the case of a house, once you make it, it stays. You don't replace the bricks. Now that's very different in the human body. Every day, some bricks are replaced, and some bricks are replaced very quickly, and others more slowly. Now that is protein turnover, and that means that over the course of 1 year, or perhaps even several months, an entire protein, the entire body actually, is replaced by new proteins, by new amino acids. Now that's very important to realize. Now some proteins have a very short or fast turnover, meaning that once they are synthesized, they're very rapidly degraded. Now other proteins have a very slow turnover, which means once they're synthesized, they are stable, they remain, and it takes years for them to be degraded. And that's mostly true for what we call structural proteins, proteins that are present in our bones or our tendons. Now let's move to the concept of protein balance. Now what is protein balance? Now protein balance refers to the difference between how much protein goes into the body and how much protein goes out of the body. Now protein goes into the body, of course, through our food. Now protein leaves the body by degradation of amino acids. Amino acids are continuously degraded where the nitrogen part, the amino part, is converted into urea and lost in the urine, and the carbon portion of the amino acid is actually used to make fuel, to generate fuel. Now at the same time, those amino acids can be used for protein synthesis, thus for protein turnover. Now normally we refer to this as nitrogen balance, and the reason for that is that actually most of the nitrogen in the body is in the form of protein, so that when we measure protein balance, we can actually measure nitrogen going in and out of the body, and that reflects protein balance. So that's summarized as follows. Protein balance essentially is nitrogen balance. It refers to the difference between nitrogen intake or protein intake and excretion. And most adults actually are in what we call nitrogen balance. The amount of protein going into the body equals the amount of protein that leaves the body. And as a result, there is no change in body protein content. However, under certain conditions, you can be in a state of positive nitrogen balance. And that means there's more protein going in than going out. And that also results in a net gain of protein in the body. And you can imagine certain conditions when that happens. Pregnant women, for instance, are in a state of positive nitrogen balance, as are children, or people that are trying to gain weight, to gain muscle. At the same time, you can be in a state of a negative nitrogen balance, and this happens under other circumstances. For instance, when you are losing weight, or when you are in the hospital because you suffered a fracture, or you're ill because of some other reason. In a state of negative nitrogen balance, the amount of body protein is actually going down, and there's a net loss of protein from the body. Now, if we put it all together and actually add some numbers to it, we can say that on average we would consume about 80 grams of protein. That's the recommendation. Now, to that 80 grams of dietary protein is added about 70 grams of protein from digestive juices or intestinal cells that are sloughed off and that mix with the dietary protein. Now, those proteins are digested to amino acids and can be absorbed, mostly, because a small portion actually leaves the body in the feces, in our stools. Now, the amino acids that are absorbed into the body can be used to make body protein through protein synthesis, and they can again be broken down then and contribute to the amino acid pool via protein degradation. Now, amino acids are also continuously degraded. They're oxidized, where we saw that the carbon portion can be used to make energy, to make ATP, whereas the nitrogen part is used to make urea, which is released in the urine. Now, if we add to the overall balance, about most of the nitrogen is degraded in that way, so it leaves the body as urea, and a small portion leaves the body as undigested protein in our stools. So, in summary, what we've talked about is protein turnover. The fact that body proteins, and actually our entire body, is continuously being broken down and remade. Some portions have a rapid turnover. They're very quickly degraded and remade. Others have a much slower rate of turnover. Now, we also have introduced the concept of nitrogen balance or protein balance, the difference between how much protein goes into the body and the amount of protein that goes out of the body, that leaves the body. And normally they are balanced out. But in certain conditions, you can be in a state of positive nitrogen balance. There's a net gain in protein in the body. People that are gaining weight, bodybuilders, or perhaps even young children. And under certain conditions, you can be in a state of a negative nitrogen balance, where more protein is leaving the body than comes in. And this happens in people that are losing weight or people that are very ill. And this is the concept of protein balance.